Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Josh Says Mean Things. We're cruising right along to episode 11. Look at us go. Steven, can you hear us out there all right? I think I finally have the audio mixer figured out in this software. I'm also testing out a new webcam today. We got all kind of new stuff, trying to figure everything out. Yeah. We'll wait a little bit. Steven, how's it going, man? You hanging in there? All right, let's see if we can flip over to... We're just chatting. We're just audio right now. We'll get our lovely dulcet tones kicking in. Pretty excited. We have a fun little group. We kind of took a little break from doing the mean things. Just a little break. I was gonna... we had a little bit of time. Awesome. We had to take a little bit of time to get our kids up and running in virtual schooling, and then it seems like the start of the year, August always just seems like a chaotic month, and we just weren't able to schedule any time to really sit down and shoot anything. And then the other part of it was, I don't think anybody else did either. Anybody that's got kids or involved in education or just getting ready to school, it was difficult to have time to go out and shoot, and it was so hot, nobody wanted to go anywhere, so I kind of laid off mean things for a few weeks. So yeah, and the family coming in the door, because I started a little bit early. I know, we're right in my front room, so they'll be leaving here and again, so I'm guessing there's gonna be another door slam, but you know what, we're just gonna roll with it. So all good. So if you're out there listening, we'll go ahead and say hey in the comments. It's always good to know who's out there. I don't know unless you chat. I don't know who's actually watching, so it's always a plus to leave a comment. I've been shooting. I had an interesting assignment this week. I got to go and photograph a bunch of Austin social institutions, so things that had like historical significance, especially in the civil rights movement. We had 41 locations to shoot on Sunday, so that was a little bit of a challenge. I got 15,000 steps in shooting all the locations. So it feels good to sit down and chat instead of running around and chasing them myself all over Austin. So that's gonna be nice. Yeah. Cool. Well, look at here. Now we're live and in charge. What's up, everybody? It's good to see everybody. This is going to be another fun episode of Josh Says Mean Things. What's up, Naomi? How you doing, girl? I'm glad you got everything working on your technical end. That's awesome. So it's going to be another fun episode. You know what? I'm excited. These are always fun for me to do. I never know what people are going to send me. I never know what people are going to send me, so I just have to kind of stay ready for whatever it might be. Hey, Mark. Yeah, no sound issues. I know. I finally got it figured out. I figured out that if I click audio mixer, I get to pick which audio. So, just learning. We're trying a new Razer Kaio webcam today. It's kind of cool. Got a built-in ring light, so I don't have to drag my video lights all around the house. And that way my wife, I have a little studio set up for my wife for her to do her virtual teaching. So this is nice. I don't have to lug lights all around the house like I usually have to do, where I'm mad dashing, scrambling, and getting that all set up. So this has been fun. I like this. This is my first time using it, so I just got it in this morning. I've been trying to order it for like a month, and it finally was in stock. So thanks, Razer, for the webcam. Not thank you, but I bought it, but still, it looks good. It works well. It's got a little adjustable dial on it. It's pretty cool. We're going to be saying mean things. I don't know. Thumbs up. How mean should I get today? That's going to be the real question. My friend Brian was giving me a hard time saying I'm too nice. And so I don't know. Maybe I should feel froggy today and get mean about it. What do y'all think? Mean or nice, Josh? Which one do we want today? I'll let y'all decide in the comments. But I wish we could do like a poll. That'd be pretty cool. Live polls or something like that. But yeah, we'll mix it in a little bit. So for this time, a couple of photos. I actually did a quick little edit on a couple, just to demonstrate some of my points. So hopefully y'all don't take too much offense. I'll include both of them in the stream, but it's just easier for me to be able to say, hey, this is what I think you should have done, and then I can show you. So I actually had a little time to do that. So nothing too crazy. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll wait for everybody to log in, but they can just hit fast forward and find us here. So yeah, this is the in the background photo, Steven, you were right there. See, we got the light painted star trail, about 100 photo blend behind me. I always try to put the same background as the one I use on the header logo, just to give it a little bit of synchronicity. How's that for a big word today, huh? Synchronicity. Yeah, you can use that tomorrow for your friends and make them think you're smarter than you really are. All right. So first image today is from Bryn. If y'all don't know who Bryn is, she works at Precision. She's the person that schedules all the classes. So yeah, so this is from Bryn. I love the colors in this. It's a very lovely time of day. We have a fish flopping out of the water, almost kind of in a surreal kind of way. It almost looks like the fish got skipped across the stones and then landed in the air. That's the only thing I can think of why there's multiple rings. Good police song. There we go. Synchronicity. All right. Yeah. So I really love the tonality of this photo, and I really love the moment of this photo. The thing that bothers me about it is that first ring, it's cut off. And so it makes the photo feel like it should have been like an inch to the right. You got the moment. But to make it that next level photo, to get to that top rung, everything has to work. And in this case, that ringlet, that outside ring getting cut, it just takes away from the synchronicity of it. No, but it takes away from the symmetry, right? We do have rules of odds, so we have a big circle, we have a medium circle, and then we have the one the fish is jumping out. So we have some rule of odds going on, but it's cut short by the fact that it's cropped off. Honestly, I think this might have been better without having any of the sky and cropping it down wider instead of being a vertical shot, doing a horizontal shot where we get ring, fish, and then just that color from blue to that pink, and not worry about the horizon line. Because I don't think anything above the fish really adds to the photo. We're going to see another example of this coming up, where what the photographer saw was right and the moment they got was right, but the framing and composition kind of let them down. And so this is one where I think a more horizontal approach I think would have been better served here. The moment and the timing and the tonality is great, but I think a horizontal where you don't have that horizon line, because that fish is the important part here, but our eye kind of goes up to that horizon line instead of being focused down like on the fish. And so we kind of lose some of that zen quality by having too much negative space above. And even though the colors are good, I don't think they necessarily add to the impact of the photo. Okay, and that's always what we're kind of going for. Can we make this photo impactful? Can we make somebody see it and be like, oh, that's amazing, and not have their eyes take them somewhere out of it? So that's where we're going with that. Ooh. But anyway, thanks for the submission, Bryn. All right, Naomi, look, you're starting us right off. Naomi sent this one to us and said, hey, this is something a little bit different. It's very much desaturated. It's not my usual, and I just want to get some feedback on it. Great way to use Josh Says Mean Things, right? Getting feedback maybe on something we don't always do, or just trying something out. You're like, I think this photo works, but I'm not really sure. And I think with a little bit of cleanup, this one could have been maybe a little bit stronger. Funny enough, literally, I just shot a photo like this like 2 days ago, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. One, that little bit of the pool on the right, and that if you look at the very top right corner, you can see just a couple of the bricks. Having those either cloned out or cropped out, I think would make this feel more like it doesn't have a place, right? Because we see that little bit of brick and we see that little bit of stone, we know then that it is in a pool. But I think if we didn't have that, it can take it and just be water, right? And so the difference between being in a pool and water is very different. And so I think cropping that part out would make a big stand there. It's unedited, okay. Well, here's some ways you can edit then. I think a more panorama crop also when you're going to go to do the editing, so more of like a 16 by 9 or maybe like a 16 by 10 crop, to where there's not as much above and not as much below, but we still keep that linearliness, more linear. I don't know. How do you say that? More linear? But something more across there, I think would be helpful in the crop. I do like the like hazy turquoise, and just kind of that turquoise and brown and the turquoise and yellows are a good contrast. I think that's a good color palette to be working with. Something I always struggle with photos like this. I always want them, or not always, but I always try to do like a very much a centered overhead photo, and those are really hard to do because then my feet always end up in it because I'm trying to like hold the camera out over them, and that doesn't always work either. And then you have a wide lens and you get some weird distortion. And so I wish I had a way to like mount like a 20-foot boom arm and then hold it over the pool where I get like a nice no distortion overhead shot. But yeah, I mean, I think the skin's nice. The other thing that, and again, this is a shot, you can't change it now, but that right arm, so the arm closest to us, I don't know. I would have liked to. And again, I completely understand shooting in a pool. I shoot in a pool a bunch. Shooting in a pool and getting the right body positioning is super hard. But we have this great curve of her hip, but then it's ended by the straight arm of her right arm. And so I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of a bent arm so that we keep that curve from her hips up to the small of her back. But then at her arm, it kind of stops. And so having an arm maybe back or bent or something where we kind of continue along those curves, I think would have made it a little bit more flowy, and I think it would have felt more flowy because that arm kind of stops your eye as it goes from foot to shoulder. So those would be the things that I first jump out. I think the toning is fine, and I think the kind of desat is nice. It makes it feel like 1960s, like Miami. You know what I mean? That kind of like, and her eyes are closed, right? So you're like, is she alive? Is she dead? Right? So it kind of has that vintage feel, and the swimsuit kind of helps with that as well, that kind of vintage one piece. So I think all of that works. Maybe just a little bit on cropping, a little bit on composition. If there's another one from the same take where that arm's a little bent, I think it's going to keep her line better. But, trust me, I understand how hard it is in the water. You're just trying not to die, right? Especially as you're just trying not to die in this situation. So, but yeah, I think, keep exploring this theme and this color and this vibe. I think there's something there. Yeah. Cool. All right, Mr. Steven. Steven says this is something, what is this, Grand Central Station at Christmas? So there's two halves to this photo. I really like the top half. I really don't like the bottom half. So the top half has these really cool, it's almost like you're looking up at a constellation. Right, like a constellation come to life in the ceiling of Grand Central Station. That's awesome. We have these really cool lines that are nice and centered coming in to the archways. That looks great. The lower 10%, it's muddled. Even on the big screen version, I want to see more detail in that bottom part. Not a bear. Yeah. You sure there's not a bear in one of those constellations? No, there's a horse and some other things. So this is where if you're in Lightroom, a gradient tool, so we can drag that gradient tool up from the bottom and we can add shadows and we can add exposure, so that we can see a little bit more detail in the people milling about, because now this photo would be, as it is now, it would be better if everything, right? See those monitors on the right? If everything below those monitors and below were just cropped off. So as an 8x10, just get rid of that whole bottom part because it's not actually adding to the photo. Right, our eye kind of follows all the lights down, and then we just get to this like huddled mass of people. So just getting rid of that completely. or using a gradient tool in some way to bring up the shadows and recover some of that detail, where we can at least give the eye some reward for seeing the whole photo. So if we're not going to reward the viewer for seeing parts of the photo, either just crop it out or clone it out, or add some detail there to where it rewards the viewers for careful viewing. And that's so much of it, right? Like, okay, so if I'm the viewer, you know, I'm taking in this photo to the top and we have all these lines pointing down, but then where's my reward for staying with the photo all the way to the bottom? We get a giant clump of people that has no detail. And so that just as an example for everybody, like, reward your viewers for careful viewing. Right, that's just something to think about. Like, reward your viewers. If they're going to pay attention through your photo from left to right, from up to down, is there a payoff? Is there a reward? Is there something where they're like, oh, cool, I see what they were doing? And some of it is removing all the distractions, and I think as beginners, that's the hardest thing, is getting rid of everything that doesn't add to the photo. And then as we get more advanced, that next step is, how can we pack a photo with everything that rewards the viewer? Okay? So just ways to think about. So good photo to talk about those sort of things. So yeah, I want to see some detail in that in the crowd. All right, this is from our good friend, Mr. Kash Biani. He's changed his emails 19 times now. It's Kash and it's Josh. It's always funny when we shoot a wedding together. He's brown, I'm white. I'm Josh, he's Kash. I don't know. It's funny. So this is, this type of photo kind of had a run a year or so ago, right? Where it's this tiny people in a big open sky, this kind of minimalistic. I kind of swept through Instagram and social media there for a while. I don't see it as much recently as I did for a while. There's about an 18-month time where this was a very type of popular. So I think there's some things going very right for it, right? We have a very good kind of low third of the photo. And then we just have this very minimalistic, this couple is very small. We have good horizontal lines. They're perfectly centered. And so as an example of that type of photo, it's very good. And I like that they're not too close, so they take up a good amount of space, right? They're not huddled close to where they feel even smaller, right? They're big and they're kind of bold, and they have good posture, and so that's all well and good. The colors and tonality again are good. We have those good blues fading to the orange, and then the orange fades to the greens, and I think that's great. My only issue for this type of photo is like, what do you do with it? Do you print it and hang it on the wall? You can't see yourself. And again, what's the payoff to the viewer? In the sense of, why do I need to see that entirety of the sky, right? There's not an Eiffel Tower behind me. There's not the Great Pyramids behind me, right? There's no big thing behind me to force me to frame like this. And again, I think it's an interesting composition. And I see people that do it very... I'll tell you a great one, Fair Juaristi. He doesn't do it as much lately, but for a while, I don't know if y'all know that name. I'll type it in the chat. Look up his Instagram. His compositions are quite amazing. But to me, he was kind of like the best at this. But there was payoffs in terms of the lines and the angles and like the complexity of it. So why do these people need to be small? Right, there's nothing forcing them to, and so I just always struggle with that. Anyway, it's just something to think about. Like, why am I composing it this way? And just having that active mind when we're shooting of saying, what do I want to show? And so I always, if there's a reason to make them smaller in the frame, I'm all for it. But I don't know what the reason would be here. So it's a good photo. It's not bad. It's just think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Are you following a trend, or is there something in the scene where you are that you're manipulating in a way, and then using those kind of lines to lead your eye to the couple? And I think those are the ones when they're the tiny couple photos. I think those are the ones that are most interesting, are the ones where something in the scene has layers and complexity, and we put the couple at the end of all those lines and complexity as a way to reward your view at the end. So. Yeah. See, I'm getting mean today. Not now. Let's see if I can figure out how this works. There we go. All right. This is from good friend Brian. Brian and I go way back. Brian may be the oldest person I know in this group. Maybe so. Brian and I met like 1998, somewhere in there. and I actually helped on the lighting on the shoot. So I was in the room when this photo was taken, so I guess I'm a little bit biased. So my first reaction when I saw this, and Brian sent it to me, and he said, hey, this is an outtake from the series. So he did this whole thing about wearing masks or punk. But this one to me is like unenthusiastic punk. Like, I didn't know you could be like an uninterested punk where he's just like, meh, I'm here. This dude's hair was amazing. Like, look at that hair. It's fabulous. I could never have that hairstyle because I just don't care that much, and my hair would never stay up. But like, this guy showed up like 8:30 in the morning with like that hair, and that's punk. But a couple things. One, I think the cropping is good in the sense that it fits the action, right? The amount of crop and what we see is exactly that kind of mimics the photo. One of the benefits of shooting on white that's nice is that it's very easy to expand your canvas in Photoshop, right? It's very easy to say expand canvas, make it white. Well, it's already white, so you can make that composition anything you need, and so that's nice. One of the things that kind of bothers me is that the lower 20% of the white isn't white. So our lights weren't bright enough, and it didn't quite. So that could have been either brushed in Lightroom, or it could have been a gradient where we only brightened the whites. So one of the things that Lightroom has now that's really cool is luminosity masking. So you can apply instructions just to certain brightnesses of the scene. And I think that would have been a good use here. Say, hey, add whites to that bottom third, only in the parts that are always kind of bright, leave the shadows alone, and that would have left his legs and shoes alone. I do like the little bit of reflection in his shoes, but to me, this just isn't a punk photo. He's punk. Wearing a mask is punk. But I just want to see more animation and more. We have all these things going together, right? You got a bandana mohawk, right? I want to see some screaming. I want to see some like bulging eyes. I want to see like fists being thrown, right? I want to see that like, but it was, 8:30 on a Sunday morning. I was kind of tired myself, but just that little bit. I can also say the lighting was perfect because I lit it. No. But yeah, I just want to see more. You have all those things going for you. And I know this was an outtake for an album cover project. Find Brian on Facebook. It's a really cool project that he did. But for a photo by itself, I just want to see a little bit more action and a little enthusiasm and like craziness going on. Some rock and roll hands, some vein popping out of his forehead, right? All those kind of things. So otherwise, really good, studio on white photo. But I'd clean up those whites on the bottom as well. That'd be my other part to it. Cool. All right, this is from Mark. One of our, look at him getting stars in a shot. So first off, I want to say thank you for not being on the railroad tracks. I come from a family that worked on train derailments, and don't be on railroad tracks. It's private property, and don't get hit by a train. So I think there's some good things going on. I kind of like the ghostly feel of the railroad crossing signs. I wonder where the light's coming from, though. I don't know if it's from headlights or a headlamp. I'm not really sure. I would like to have seen this a little bit lower composition to pick up a little bit more of the foreground. So around train tracks, you have all this like rubble and scree. And so by placing our camera maybe on the ground, where we make those crossbars even more dramatic and like reaching up to the sky, but we would also have a foreground then as well. And I think that's what's missing from this photo is a good foreground. We have a middle ground, right, the crossbars, and we have a background, right, we have the stars. So we have those two things working for us. But that camera even lower and even more extremely pointed up, I think that gives us more of a foreground. It gives us some more of those rocks, and it also would get rid of some of those distracting elements, kind of that tend toward the background. There's some like stop signs back there and some other things. So by getting in even lower, we use the elevation of the train track to block out those things. The other thing, when we're shooting stars, Milky Way, star trails, all those things, the lower we get our camera, the more we can use our foregrounds to block out some of the light pollution and black out some of the unwanted elements we may not want, where it's just our foreground, maybe a little bit of middle ground, and then our Milky Way, our stars, our star trails, whatever. So that would be actually kind of cool with this type of composition, Mark. Keep this thing going, and then just keep running it for like an hour, and then watching those stars, and then having that star trail go across the arms of the crossbars would be very cool as well. So if you can get stars, you can always get a star trail. Now it may not be like a very complex star trail, but you can always get a star trail. So once you get this composition, just hit your camera and just tell it keep firing and get like 30, 40, 50, 60 frames. I use a program called Star Stacks, and it lines up. It just automatically makes comments out of all my stars. So that'd be something cool to try too. I am teaching a class on star trails in October. But, you know, I think that could make it more interesting as well, where you get more going across the sky. Just something you could do. But yeah, I would definitely get that camera lower. And if you're, Mark, if you're still listening, what was lighting up these crossbars? Was it just like a safety light or headlights or headlamp? I'm always kind of curious what the light source was. But I like that there's detail in the stop sign and those three things. And we do have a little bit of rule of odds with the crossbar, and stop sign. But those are the three things that are interesting. And I would get my camera low to where it was just those three things, right? And we get rid of all that kind of trash at the bottom, right? There's a little bit of a fence and a fence post and some other stuff. So dropping our camera another 2 or 3 feet, I think we could have got some more, would have been a more impactful photo. But good job getting the stars and everything. Yeah, the Star Trail class is fun. Star Trails are fun. Cool. This one's from Michelle. This was actually just taken with her cell phone from what she told me. She told me, I don't remember what kind of cell phone, but I love the composition. I love the sharp and black and contrast. You know, I think there's a lot going. We have water on the leaves, phone flashlight. So I'll give you a little tip. Turn your, if you can, either put a little warming gel or that's the problem with the night sky is tungsten. So we want to take our daylight balanced light sources and make them a little oranger so that they match the color of the night sky. If you want to make them match. I kind of like the blue on this one though. I don't know that I would change it for that shot, but just know that the night sky is generally tungsten. So if you have daylight flashes, you want to gel them to be tungsten. Headlamps, car lights, whatever. So back to this little cactus with water. Oh, I guess it's a pineapple, isn't it? It's a pineapple. I love the water drops and all the triangles. So again, one of the things that makes photos interesting is the rule. We call it the rule of odds, but 1, 3s, 5s. Well, triangles are a 3. Water is a circle. Water is a 1. Also interesting. So we have circles on the water, we have triangles on the leaves, and both those things add interest. And I love kind of the super high contrast clarity. I like all that. I think it works for this. I would not use this processing on a portrait, right? That might be a little bit too much for a portrait. But I think for a pineapple, this works great. I think turning it black and white works great. You know, it's one of those things too, like where do you crop on something like this? You have so many like extruding lines. Where do you crop? You know, I think this one's fine. The one on the right, you know, I would have liked to maybe have seen it. But it's hard to say. You're always going to get this close, you're going to have some stuff cropped off. It's just the way it is. So yeah, I think it's cool. I know, Michelle, if you're listening, you've really been playing along, with a lot of plants and abstracts. Keep going with it. I think there's a lot there. I think some of the more successful photos I've seen from you have been kind of plants and silhouettes and high contrast. So keep going with that. I think that's good exploration. And really try to find the triangles and circles. Just try to see as an exercise, try to see how many triangles and circles you can fit into a frame, because the human eye is really attracted to that. We're very attracted to triangles, circles, pentagons. We don't really like straight lines. We don't like squares. We don't like rectangles. And that's one of the reasons, like if you have a lot of squares, you can turn your camera 45 degrees and you'll make triangles out of squares. Look at Mr. Pineapple. See, look at that fortuitous timing. I'm just going to throw out all the SAT words I can today. We've already had synchronicity. We've had fortuitous. We're just going to throw them all out there. We're going to go crazy with SAT words. Maybe it's because I've been teaching my kids all day that I'm into crazy words. But yeah, I like all the textures. I like all the different textures and water. Anytime you can add water to the photo, it's probably going to make it better. That's my general rule of thumb. Add water, it's going to be better. If you can add water and smoke, even more so. Cool. All right. This is from dear old Kira. Kira, I hope you're watching. I put some work into this. So Kira sent me this one, and she said, hey, you know, I felt like there was something here, but it didn't translate through the final photo. So what I think is really working here, we have these cool diagonal lines coming in from the light. Her face is well lit, and we have this really cool detail on her dress. One of the things that drives me crazy on wedding dresses is when I can't see the detail. When people blow it out, and then it's just like this white silhouette. And that really bothers me in wedding photos when people blow out wedding dresses. And so I think holding that detail in the shadows and the highlights is really nice here. And we have really interesting, the background has a shadow, but it also has some detail in it. And the foreground has some diagonals and some stripy lines, and there's a stripy line going across her chest. And so we kind of placed her where she's picking up some of the light, kind of very Rembrandt lighting coming across her face, deep shadows. I like all of that. So what you saw was right. How you composed it wasn't. And there's two things that I fixed in this photo. One, this was shot with a 35 millimeter on a full frame, which is my absolute favorite lens. But when you shoot it vertical, if you're not perfectly straight, if we look at the right side window and the left side window, and can we see how the lines are forming a V? Okay, so the first thing that we would want to do is use our transform tool in Lightroom. Transform tool in Lightroom. Go to guided, and then you can draw those lines that form a V, and then Lightroom will straighten it up. Okay, so that'd be the first thing I do, because those crooked lines really bother me, right? Because what we want to happen is we want the building to be verticals and horizontals, and then we want our bride to be the curve. Okay, so that's our contrast, is the bride is the curve to the building's straightness. But to do that, we have to make sure that the building is straight. And so, Naomi, this kind of goes into yours as well, right? Just she lost the curve in that pose. And so for here, I would have really asked her to accentuate her hip pointing out to really make it even more curvy. But also that transform tool to straighten up my building so that my building is straight, so that she can be the feminine to the masculine straightness. Does that make sense? So the next photo will correct that. But the other thing is the crop. So everything above her head we don't really need, and everything below the bouquet we don't really need. Neither of those add to the photo. And so what I did a horizontal crop. Hey, kitty. I did a horizontal crop, and I fixed the line. So let's take a look at that and just see what it looks like. Same photo. Okay? Same photo. But we changed the straightness of the lines, and we went from a vertical to a horizontal, and we really brought it into her face. Okay? Can y'all see that difference? Can y'all feel that difference? Hey, Miguel. All right, so let's go back just one. So here's the original photo. And again, it's one of those like that middle ground where it's like, man, hey, Noe, what's up? Look at you and Miguel join at the same time. What's up, guys? But can we feel that something was there, and the instinct was right to get this photo and put her in this place? The processing was right to maintain the highlights and the shadows. So those two things were right. The idea, the positioning, the processing, all those were good. Where we let down, those diagonal lines that should have been verticals, okay? And then just punching in our crop to where it's interesting all the way across, okay? Because now in this crop, there's no dead space. There's no place for your eye to go, right? Everywhere you go, it rewards you, right? Right, we go highlight, face, highlight, shadow. Vertical, vertical, vertical. She's curvy, vertical, vertical, vertical. Okay, so not only do we want contrast in black and white, but we also want it in form, right? In art, we generally say, right, straight lines, the masculine, contrasted with the feminine, right, the curve. Okay, and a lot of time when I'm posing couples, I want the groom to be, or the man, or the masculine person. It doesn't even have to be the man, but I want the masculine person to be straight and rigid, and I want the feminine couple or the member of the couple to be curvy, because then that's the contrast. Right, we have a contrast in shapes, and in here we have a contrast of tonality. Okay, so we want all those things to marry together. Okay, the other thing I did in this photo, there was a light socket in the back, a wall socket that I cloned out, just so that you didn't have any reason to look other than to her face. Okay, we got rid of everything except what had to be there. All right, Miguel, this one's from you, right? More Miguel motion. That should be your Instagram name, right? Miguel in motion. Every photo he sends me is motion, which I love. I love having that energy, and I like that this is basically a building shot with some people in it. right? This very much has that Ezra Stoller kind of lines going for you. If you don't know who that is, look up Ezra Stoller. Very influential architectural photographer. Yeah, there you go. Throwing out some knowledge today. But it has that. Again, though, one thing on this photo, that left edge where I think it's your wife, I'm guessing it's your wife, that left edge just feels like it's falling forward a little bit, and that the whole photo feels like it's falling like 5% to the right. And so just bringing that photo just a little bit to the left, I think makes that left edge feel a little bit more anchored, but it feels like she's almost holding on to the wall, to everything sliding off her, right? Because everything's kind of tilted to the right just enough, and it feels like she's holding the wall from falling over more. So I think just rotating it like literally just a couple percentage points to the left, I think it's going to make it feel more centered. But I love that it's a longer exposure, and then we get these people walking through. I bet it was hard to find the exposure and the shutter speed to where you got people in the right amount of motion that either wasn't too bright or too dark. Am I right on that? Whenever I do these shots, it's always just that guess of like what ISO, what f-stop, what shutter speed to get the motion, but not to get a dark photo or an overly exposed photo, right? Or the people just wash out completely. So that's always kind of that fine line of playing with. But I'm guessing it's like a 2-second exposure, something like that. That'd be my guess. It's somewhere in there. But anyway, I like it. I like the motion. Yeah. And I like her stillness, right? Again, we're talking about contrast. So we have that black and white contrast, but then we also have her stillness contrasted against the motion of the people, right? And I think that's a really cool thing to work on. That's a great technique for many different types of storytelling. Right, so we're all just storytellers, right? And so learning a technique like this is a really great way to be able to tell certain types of story. The stillness versus the energy. Which one do you want to tell, right? But it allows you to tell that contrast. So it's a great technique to work with. But yeah, I would just turn the crop just a little bit to the left. I think it just needs a little bit of fine tuning there. Also, if you look at the lower left corner, there's a little line coming down, and I would love to see that line hit right at the vertex of the left corner, right? So the line where her feet are that keeps running, and so tilt it where it hits just that corner, I think is going to make it a little bit more fine-tuned as well. Come on. Here we go. All right. This one comes to which one do I have the right version? Yeah. So this one comes to us from Jim McKay. Jim's a great friend of mine. We do a lot of projects together. He's a video guy that does some photo, and I'm some photo guys that occasionally is terrible at video. So this one is a headshot he did, and he wanted some feedback on. And so for me, there's a couple things. One, I wish it was like 2% pulled back. It bothers me that her hair is just chopped off right at the end. And so I would have either brought the crop up, or I wish it was pulled back just a little bit to where that little bit of her hair is not chopped off. And that just bothers me a little bit. I do like the catch lights in her eyes. So it looks like he has an overhead light with a reflector fill. And I think maybe a ring flash for shadows, or some kind of light right in the center. So it's a nice light setup. It's a very beautiful light. And I love the catch light. It really gives some life to her eyes. Some of these setups, if the lights are too far out from what can be seen, the eyes can look dull. And I really love how her eyes have a lot of life to them. One thing I kind of noticed, though, is along her cheeks, kind of right along this way, the skin looks kind of mottled. Not mottled, but M-O-T-T-L-E-D, mottled. And I don't know if that was from trying to attempt to retouch the skin. I'm not sure, but it was, to me, slightly distracting. Because she has such smooth skin everywhere else, just in those shadows, right, just under her cheekbones, there's some I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, the hair just either come up or come down a little bit. But as it is, it's a little bit distracting. Also, there's some hair going across her face and chin, and I would clean that up as well. My general stance for headshots is it's how you could look on your best day. So I don't want to take the post-processing to make you look like somebody you will never be. But like, if you have acne that day, you don't have acne every day. So I have no problem taking that out, right? If your hair wasn't, nice, perfectly brushed, your hair can be brushed. So I don't mind taking out some flyaways and those type of things. So that's just kind of my mentality. That is certainly not a hard and fast rule. That's just my perspective on doing headshots. I want them to look like they look on their best days. But I love the glow. I love her eyes. Her hair is really nice. The cropping bothers me. So I took a little bit of a run at this one. I ran it through some smooth softening, and I took out some of the flyaways in the hair. So let's see if we like it. It's maybe a little bit more dramatic, and it's a little bit. But that skin's a little bit smoother. But look at above her left eye. Look at the flyaway here. And then we just kind of smoothed out some of that hair. We didn't smooth the hair. We just got rid of some of the flyaways. And especially around this part of her chin and above this eye. And then smoothed out those shadows to where it's not modeled. And to me, it looks just a little bit more refined. I didn't change a whole lot else. But I wish that crop, just that bottom part of the hair, just kind of throws me off a little bit. So... yeah, what do we think? Anyway, something to think about. So I do a lot of headshots. We've already done like 8 headshot sessions in the last 30 days, so we do quite a bit. And if y'all are wondering, I use a plugin in Photoshop for skin retouching. It's called Portrait Pro. I think they're on version 19. It's a lifesaver because I can get really quick edits without having to spend forever trying to do them. If I really need to go crazy, we can do frequency separation, but man, it takes forever. So this is just kind of a speed. I think I spent less than 5 minutes on this photo. Anyway, just something to think about. All right, this one comes to us from Miss Chrissan13 on Instagram, who's if y'all are on my Patreon, y'all always see my friend Heidi, and she is Heidi's cousin, and so she's a filmmaker here in town, and this is a still from one of the projects she was working on. I love the mood, I love the vibe to this. And we can kind of tell it has that little more cinema crop to it. It's a little bit more widescreen than a normal like 3x2 from a 35mm camera would have. I like the purple. I would have maybe liked to have seen a little bit more. One of those lights could have been a little bit more yellow, and I think that could have been cool. Maybe on the front light, just have that little bit of hint of yellow to really pop him off that purple background. I like his pose, though, and the glasses. Like, it's just a cool dude, man. This guy just looks like he's owning the space. The other thing I really like is there's nothing in this photo that isn't supposed to be there. In the sense of there's no distracting elements. So there's nothing taking us out of the photo. Everything we see is meant to be in the frame. Some people might quibble that the hair got cut off. That doesn't really bother me so much. But I could see some people saying, hey, come up like 6 inches, because there's a lot of dead space from his chest to his chin, and we could have gotten his hair in it. That's up to you. That's a personal taste at that point. I don't think the crop is wrong, but I could see some people that might bother. But I just like the vibe to it. There's just this cool vibe with its glasses and the shades. But I would have liked to have just seen maybe a complementary color in there, maybe a little bit of yellow, maybe on his neck or on his face, just as a way to kind of pop him off that background. Because the skin tone has red in it and the background has red in it, right? Purple and red, and the skin tone is red and orange. So just having that yellow or another color, maybe like a deep blue, just as a way to kind of pop off the background so he doesn't blend in. That skin blends in a little bit much into that background. The other thing I'd say when you're shooting on paper backdrops like this, they can get a little bit wrinkled from time to time. And so there are a few paper wrinkles. And so just bring the person off the background a little bit more and let depth of field be your friend to where that background's a little bit more fuzzy and just a color. But there's just enough detail in there to tell that it's kind of been maybe bruised a little bit. There's some bumps in the paper. So that would be something that I would either clone out or, but just move the subject off the background. And you don't have to move them very much, but it'll help because you're shooting at a pretty wide open aperture. So again, just let aperture be your friend and kind of blur out the background even more. So, but I like the mood. Keep exploring with this type of light. It's a very fun, dramatic light setup, and so keep going with it. I think there's some funness too there. Oh, you know what? I didn't include Mia's photo. Oh. Well, there's also supposed to be a photo from Mia, but I didn't download it into my photo gallery. So this is our last photo. I'll include Mia's next time. For our next live stream, we're going to be doing we're going to be printing from the Lightroom. That's a suggestion from, I think, Steven, you threw that out there. But I'm going to walk through how I set up my printer and my papers and all of that in Lightroom so that we can print from Lightroom. There's been a lot of new fine art printers coming out. Canon and Epson in the last 6 to 8 months, have both released new printers. And I want to say that Canon just came out with another one like this week, maybe a 200 or 300 or something. But what that means is there's a lot of late models that are on sale. And so I'm still using an Epson P800. It prints great. I'm printing like 16 by 20s on it, and they're beautiful. So we're going to be walking through the print module in Lightroom. And I just think that's something that's really useful. There's not a lot to it. It won't be super long, maybe 20, 30 minutes. But I just think it's good info to have in terms of there's just like 3 things to know. And once you know them, it makes your life a lot easier. If you don't know them, it makes your life really hard. And it can be very frustrating if you don't know kind of the workflow to set up stuff in Lightroom. But once you know it, it's very easy. I prefer printing in Lightroom than I do in Photoshop. If I can do it in Lightroom, I prefer to do it in Lightroom. If I have to do it in Photoshop, I will. But if I can do it in Lightroom, I probably will. It just, to me, the workflow is much easier. There's less hoops to jump through. Photoshop's been around since the 80s, and they've changed things, but it's an update to an update to an update to an update to an update. And so it's not as streamlined as some other software. So anyway, if y'all have suggestions for other types of Lightroom or post-processing things y'all want to see, please hit me up. We've done camera calibration, we've done monitor calibration, we've done processing in Milky Way. If y'all want to maybe see how we do a portrait retouch with Lightroom and Photoshop, we can walk through that. Anyway, just throw out suggestions. Y'all can always email me at josh@azulocks, or just leave me a comment on wherever. I'm easy to get a hold of. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, maybe not Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all Azulocks. You should be able to find me. So yeah, if you have suggestions, just let me know, because I want to make this content where the people that subscribe to our Patreon channel are getting what they want. So yeah, anyway, thanks for joining us today. This has been episode 11 of Josh Says Mean Things. We probably won't do another Josh Says Mean Things in September, so we'll give y'all some time to go out and shoot some new content so you have good things to submit. So go out and shoot, and then we're going to print it, and then you can submit it. So awesome, guys. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thanks for joining.